All right.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Series. My name is Gina Spataro, and this is my brother, Sam Spataro. We always get together once a week to talk about matters of the heart and mind. I am going to apologize right off the bat. I have a light that is glaring me in the eye right now. I can't really see much, but something happened to my light that I normally use, so I am makeshifting a light, so hopefully you can see a little bit better. So Sam, how's your week been?
Great week so far. Sticking to my worker regimen. I'm really pumping it at work. Spending some good QT time with the kids, the wife, and starting my stone water feature. So I'm starting to get all the stone picked out and ready. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. How about you?
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Great week. Yeah. Great week. Nothing to complain about. It's nice to see that things are starting to look a little bit closer to normalcy, somewhat. But yeah, it's nice, getting out more, allowed to be a little bit more interactive, walks around the lake, etc. It's like my happy place. So doing that is great. Other than that, enjoying the sunshine, truthfully. Yeah. So tonight's topic, ladies and gentlemen, is on gaslighting and why it sparked, what sparked this for us this week were a few documentaries, actually.
Crazy people.
Should we mention them, Sam? Or
yeah, actually, so
yeah, we watched the one with Epstein,
and the curious
was a little crazy.
Dalia DiPolito. It's on YouTube.
Sorry?
The Curious Case of Dalia.
You cut out. I didn't hear you.
Are you getting feedback?
No, you're just glitchy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we watched The Curious Case of Dalia DiPolito. Gene, you're going to get high because your screen keeps freezing.
Yep, that was... Okay, you keep talking, okay?
All right, so what sparked tonight's topic was a friend of mine sent me a video. Thanks, Jay, in advance for sending it to me. And the video is called The Curious Case of Dalia DiPolito. If you want to watch it, there's a wicked channel called DCS. It's criminal psychology. And this guy goes and takes cases of criminal cases where they basically talk about the cases of the people and then the interview with the people. And it kind of breaks down the psychological processes of their behaviors, the things that they did and their conclusions of it all. And we also watched the Jeff Epstein series on Netflix, which I recommend everybody watch. Me and my wife started watching it. I got into about half of the first episode and I kind of stopped watching it because it just seemed very repetitious about, not that it's not a big deal about him being kind of like a pedophile and doing all these crazy things, high profile guy, billionaire, lots of money, lots of power, lots of influence, and pretty much thought he was invincible, could get away with anything. But as it progressed, it got so much deeper and deeper and deeper. And there was just so much gaslighting that, that really came out of it. What really prompted it all was that case that I watched that my friend sent me, which I'm very grateful for. And it kind of sparked a nuance in me to look into a little deeper, because one of my missions is to end almost all mental health issues if it's possible. But if not, well, some anxiety, some panic attacks, compulsive disorders, whatever it might be. And gaslighting really ties into that in so many ways. And for me, I never even had a clue what gaslighting was. And I'm sure for most of us, we don't. But it's a very recognizable term that a lot of people who specialize in narcissistic behaviors, when it comes to whether the person is a narcissist or someone's been in a relationship or in a business partnership or whatever that sort of relationship might be, whether it's family, father, mother, grandfather, someone of influence that impacted you and you really didn't know what was going on. So There's a ton of research on this, a very important thing to understand, especially for some of you who are maybe getting into relationships, have been in one, and or maybe look, hey Jay, thanks for reaching out, and you're actually the reason why we have this topic tonight, so thanks again. And maybe, Gina, what you can do is you can pull up, and so tonight what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a few key things. One, we're gonna talk about what gaslighting is, and since it pertains to relationships, we're gonna discuss that element in relationships, and then we're gonna follow it with what are some of the behaviors, what are some of the things that impact the person who's involved with someone like that, and then what are some of the things you can do if you are in a relationship with someone like that, or you're starting to see some red flags with somebody you're dating, getting involved with, and there's a lot of things you're starting to question. So do you want to start with what is gaslighting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, so there's a few things that you can touch upon with gaslighting that I read upon, but what you have here is a means into questioning their own sanity. So basically, it is a huge form of manipulation and the need for control. It's ultimately when someone will constantly deny the actual reality of a situation. And there's no ownership, there's no accountability, and their perception in it all is that whatever it is they're thinking, it's actually true, which is bizarre in itself. But you have here
Get
the
to the
manipulation and
part.
brainwashing
Yeah.
that causes a victim to doubt her or himself. Yep. So when you lose their sense of perception or identity. Okay.
Do you want to touch on that last part, and then we can kind of discuss that a little bit?
People who gaslight other people in their lives may have a psychological disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. This is Sam's like triggered disorder right now. He's so hopped on the narcissistic personality because, I mean, narcissism in itself is very evident in a lot of people, okay? But when it can be identified as an actual personality disorder, that's when it can get a little bit tricky with the severity of what the person is willing to do to control, essentially. So, but go ahead. You can tap on touch onto it if you would like.
Yeah, no, for sure. So for some of you who don't know, I also have another channel, and it's really devoted mostly in the context of helping men who experience mental health issues. So, narcissistic personality disorder isn't just biased to male or female, it's both. So this pertains to both on our channel. And so what spawns it to me is the impact that it has on the well-being, both mentally, spiritually, and physically on the individual, which is what kind of drew me in from this, especially after watching the Jeff Epstein video, especially after watching that YouTube video. It just really got me thinking that, it's like a lot of us. I mean, all of us, I believe, have personality disorders. We all have things that we bring to a relationship that aren't helpful. And so whether they're clinical or not clinical, these are just things that we can all be conscious of what are we bringing? What are the things that, are good? What are the things that aren't so good? And what kind of impact can we have to make those changes? Now, pertaining to this sort of disorder, and why it's so important is because there's not much you can do. And so often you'll be the one who is, maybe you're getting in a race, you're seeing some of these red flags, you don't really know what's going on, and maybe you've tried a few things, or there's some things that you just really aren't making a lot of sense. And it really just is a disorder. The majority of the people, I've worked with them, right? I've worked with them. I've, seen people, that are extended friends, family, whoever it might be, and kind of fall into some of this category. But the whole question is, once you get a better understanding of what you're dealing with, a better understanding of what gaslighting is, how it's characterized as a narcissistic personality disorder, you can kind of pull yourself away a little bit and start to realize, okay, this really has nothing to do with me, right? It's an illness, it's a disorder, it's a mental disorder, whatever it might be. And what you can start to do is, number one, maybe create some roadblocks. But one key thing you can start to do is start to realize, you know what? I just need to start focusing on what I can control. What sort of impact can I have? You know, is this a road that I want to go down, knowing that there's not much more that I can do to make a difference and to make a change, or have specific expectations that can come from this? And so we kind of discussed, you know, what is, you know, gaslighting, what is it characterizing a relationship, and ultimately it's attached to a personality disorder. Now what we can also discuss, and maybe, you know, what's important is, how does that play out in a relationship? You know, we've seen that case with that girl, and I want to touch base on a couple points before I let you in. So just to give you some quick tips, this girl was plotting to kill her husband, hired a person who ended up being a private investigator. And so when she came home one day, they actually made it look like the crime was committed. And they consoled her, and, you know, her husband was dead. She needed to go down to the police station to ask some questions, fill out some paperwork. And so what they did was, real briefly, is they sat down and they made it seem like it was somebody else. And they were consoling her, showing her compassion and kindness and empathy. And then they told her that they found the person that did it. And they brought him into the room, and they asked her, have you ever seen this guy before? And she said, obviously no. He said no. And once that ended, the gentleman came back and goes, listen, cut the bullshit. We know it was you. And here's where the narcissistic personality disorder came in, because she denied, with all the evidence pointing towards her on video, with her saying the things that she did, her face being on there in front of the video. And when it came down to talking to the husband about it, talking to the judge about it, talking to the jury about it, she still didn't believe that she did it. She still didn't believe that she did anything wrong. She was still trying to manipulate her way out of it, because in her world, she truly believes that she didn't do this, that she did nothing wrong. And that's kind of how that played out. And, you know, it can be very scary if you're getting into a relationship and you're starting to get these red flags and certain things that pertain to this. And so maybe you're realizing, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, that you might be with a person like this. And, you know, is this the end? Maybe. Maybe you look at getting help, and there's so many different things we're going to talk about later on in the video. But what are your thoughts on this?
Like you, I mean, I agree with a lot of the things about gaslighting, for sure. It's definitely evident in a lot of relationships, and it's more prominent. You know, the scenario that you just said, like, that's pretty excessive. But what happens is, when
Gee, you're frozen again. Anyway, I'll pick up until she unfreezes here. So basically what it comes down to is, you know, what are you going to do? Maybe you're just getting into a relationship and you're starting to see these red flags. Like I said, maybe you're involved in one. And, oh, you're back. Are you back? Or are you not back? You're frozen again. Okay, so when my sister gets back, I'm going to get her to pull up so you can understand and be educated about what the impacts are going to be as you pursue this relationship on your well-being and your mental health. So let's talk about that. What are the symptoms of being gaslit? Are you going to be able to get through this whole thing without freezing, or what? Let's give it a try.
I don't know. I don't know. I just want to finish off. I want to finish off my last comment, where it's when you're in that relationship and the manipulation happens, you get so lost in it, because you honestly start questioning your moral compass as to, are you actually the one who is wrong? And that's where it becomes sketchy, when you start questioning your own morality in it all. Like, was I contributing to this? And that's what someone who does, or who gaslights someone, will and making you feel, is that your own moral compass is it, right? So you have to identify that. But go ahead.
Okay, so what are some of the symptoms of gaslighting that you can expect if you get involved with somebody like this? So the first keynote that I wanted to touch on is you can start to feel a lot of anxiety. You can start to experience a lot of depression and less confident than you used to be. A very, very big thing is you can expect to apologize often. In the case study that I watched with Dahlia and also Jeff Epstein, they are never in the wrong, and you will often question your own sanity afterwards, wondering whether or not, that lie somehow was the truth, and then you'll end up apologizing and walking away wondering, like, what the hell just happened? And so you can expect to apologize often. And another key note is having a sense that something's wrong, but being unable to truly identifying it. So you're always, stuck in that negative rumination of like, there was definitely something was going on here, but I'm unable to identify what it is. And you're constantly working to seek what it might be. The next point, you're often questioning whether your response to your partner is appropriate. Now, if you watch those cases, you will often find that, especially that gentleman, he was saying, look, I see you this stuff. This is what's going on, and she would feed back at him. And I felt bad for him because it's almost like she was making it seem like it was completely inappropriate for him to ask these questions. Like, we're talking about moral ground. We're talking about her trying to X him and get rid of him for money and power, whatever it might be that, whatever the reason was she created in her mind. And she was literally flipping it around and really making it seem like it was so inappropriate for him to ask these questions. It was ridiculous. Another thing is they making excuses for your partner's behavior. You will start to then make excuses for the way they act. It's completely wrong, but in your head, you then try to create logic around it. It's absolutely ridiculous. You will avoid giving them information of friends or family members to avoid confrontation about your partner because, number one, you don't want them to tell you the truth that you already know. And you're probably already dealing with enough stuff that you can't compound it because you feel like you're locked in, signatures on that paper, and there's no way out. Another key point here is feeling isolated from friends and family, because I'm assuming that, they're very controlling and manipulative. You'll find it very hard to make decisions, and you'll definitely have a lot more feelings of hopelessness and taking little or no pleasure in activities that you used to. And is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that covers it basically. But yeah, they will for sure try and make you feel like you are in the wrong, even though you have caught them red-handed. There will be no accountability, there will be no ownership, and the target will always be you. Always. Did I freeze there or was I good?
No, you're good. I'm just looking for, I actually got a lot of these points from a lady named Dr. Ramani. She specializes in dealing with a lot of narcissism. She's a therapist. And I definitely recommend if, you're interested in this category, understanding a little bit more, or you're kind of in question of what's going on in the relationship you're pursuing, definitely watch her. She has so many different topics regarding this. And she can also give you a lot more insight into, what is the personality, what to expect, what would the relationship be like, and what are some of the symptoms of it, and then what are some of the options that you can have, which I'm going to share. So here are some things that you can do. So go ahead.
I said, when you feel like you are feeling isolated, I think that's when you really need to start questioning some things, because that's a huge part of the control.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing worse than losing yourself in an event you can't control, like cancer or bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But to lose yourself in a relationship with someone that you literally, committed your whole life to. I mean, this is where, we really need to have a really good, strong support network with this. And so what are some of the things that you can do? So maybe you're in a relationship, you're getting into one, and you're starting to have a lot of these feelings. And for someone who works with people with mental health, who has a lot of anxiety in his life, and his real mission is to end mental health issues, is The one thing you could do is you could just get up and leave. And actually, a lot of these psychologists say you want nothing to do with these people, whether it's relationships, businesses, family, friends, mothers, dads, whatever. You just want to get up and leave because it's really going to bring nothing of value to your life. Another thing that you can do is
now,
you can just look. Yeah.
Now, here's the problem with, I'm just being devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
When leaving, there's also fear with leaving, especially with someone who does this a lot, the gaslighting.
Yeah,
right?
But fear from the person who's leaving, or the person who is the gaslighter is going to pursue a lot of fear.
Who is the gaslighter?
Okay, well, this is you basically.
Because they are so unpredictable, right?
They are. So I guess really what it comes down to, if you have everything that we just talked about, I think the most powerful thing you can do here, right now, is just to leave. And remember, these are just our opinions. We are not psychologists. We don't have degrees in this. We're just sharing some thoughts and ideas of things that we learn along the way to help you, right? The things that we've learned in our relationships, the things that we learned from watching case studies and, people that we follow, so that you can make better choices and decisions. Or maybe you're in a situation where you don't have the proper tools and education, and something that we share can help you. And so, can you just go down a little bit here? I just want to make sure I didn't miss one.
Nope.
Keep going. I think it's on the page above that. So I just want to make sure. So there was leave, and then there was a second. Okay. So the very first thing you can do, and this is information I've collaborated from people who specialize in this, is you can leave. And, we discussed that, they're very manipulative. They'll put a lot of fear in you. So this is how you can take your power back right away. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gone. I'm pulling myself out of this. I'm going somewhere. I'm not answering their phone calls. I'm not dealing with the manipulation, the toxicity, anything that comes with it. I'm just leaving to ground myself. Take a couple breaths, get myself together, and then proceed to possibly the next thing, which I will come back to on the second point there, which is seek a professional who specializes in this behavior. There are actually people who are professionals, just deal with mental health, who deal with people who have maybe been raised with narcissistic personality disorders, so many different things, and they just specialize in this. And this is where you want to go. You don't want to go with someone who has a broad spectrum. You want to go with someone who just deals with this all the time, because they're on the cutting edge of all the information, all the new tools, all the case studies that are going to help you to make decisions quickly, because you're going to need to, because you're literally going to go in an up and down emotional roller coaster, especially after everything that you've endured being in what you've been in. Or maybe you're just starting out and you want to seek a professional's help to get some guidance, some insights, and some things on, what you possibly could expect going down the road by sharing some of the things that you're learning already about the person that you're with. And the very next thing that I want to touch on is, if you decide to stay in the relationship, is just learn to have acceptance with their disorder, and don't get sucked into the manipulation. And so this will benefit you because you're no longer trying to wonder why. You're no longer trying to be the person who's trying to fix them. You're just in a place where, you know what, I love them. There's a problem here, and I'm just going to learn to accept that this is something I will never change. And so maybe what you decide to do is you change your focus a little bit in here. You no longer let it eat away at you, where you lose a sense of yourself. Maybe you choose different tactics by seeking a professional's help, or a coach, or someone who specializes in this area, on different tactics and strategies and how you can approach things. So you, number one, keep your mental health intact. Number two, you don't feel like you're losing all the time when it comes into conversation, because you have very tactful strategies on how to communicate better. And number three, maybe you just learn to have a little bit more compassion and empathy to what's going on, because they really don't even realize they're doing this. And so, I mean, this is no different than you having a child who has, what's a common thing that you deal, like Asperger's, or what's another common one that children have nowadays that affects their learning? And
ADHD.
No, not ADHD. It's very, very prominent now, like Asperger's. It's a form of
autism.
Autism. Like there's certain things you just have to accept and embrace, right? I mean, yeah, if they're children, you're not going to, just, oh, because they're toxic, okay, it's time for me to move on. And maybe you feel that in your relationship, and that's okay. Like, nobody's telling you that you should or should not be there. What you should do is intelligently have a conversation with yourself truthfully and say, am I and will I be willing to accept this disorder? And then how do I approach it so that I'm not giving a part of myself away? I'm not losing myself in conversations and in things that happen, because now I can be very tactful also on how to approach it. And so the final one that I want to share is work on yourself more than the relationship. And so what I mean by that is, once you realize that there's really maybe nothing that you can do, start working on you a little bit more. Stop trying to invest so much time in trying to save somebody or change them. Start working on yourself. Start building up your mental health. Join some support groups. Start working out, biking, taking up some hobbies maybe you have put off because you've been so consumed into everything that you've been experiencing. And I want to end on that. And I don't know if there's anything you want to share, Jean.
I do, because there's some things that I agreed with and some things I don't. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. One, I think that when you do get into, so yes, we are talking about gaslighting. And most of the time, a very narcissistic person will approach a loved one with this manner, with the gaslighting. Now, I personally would not suggest, if you were in a relationship with someone who had severe narcissistic personality disorder, to contemplate how you are going to deal with it. Because if you feel like you're losing a sense of who you are at the core, if you feel as though you are threatened, if you feel as though that you are in harm's way, it's beyond you and it's beyond the relationship. And yes, like Sam said, you need to seek help. Whether it's confiding in someone and not feeling embarrassed or guilt that you're in a relationship that you are in. However, on the side, if you are in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic, and I mean, you can correlate it to egotistical, it's understanding who they are. And yes, you can, like, if you decide to stay in the relationship, it's understanding to almost how to play your cards right in certain scenarios so that you're not losing a part of yourself. It's understanding their tactics, and it's almost creating like a reverse psychology demeanor towards them, so that you are not always targeted. You are teaching lessons along the way. You are not the victim. And you learn those strategies, because yes, I have heard that, certain narcissistic characteristics are embodied by everybody. Okay. There's certain things that everyone can be like, oh, I've actually, that could be me. I could encompass that a little bit. You'll notice that a lot of entrepreneurs or people that own businesses have certain traits, because it's just embodied in those professions. However, when it comes to like check, yes, I'm ticking off all the boxes that relate to this characteristic, you have to identify the severity. But yes, there are narcissists who have been taught a few lessons in their lifetime, and you can teach them lessons appropriately. And it's sometimes conditioned, just like value of self, beliefs, etc. Sometimes the narcissistic characteristics are conditioned, and it's reconditioning those characteristics and teaching a few lessons along the way if you have the mindset to do so.
Yeah, those are some really good points. There's just a couple things I want to add. They say that this personality disorder is very prominent in high-profile businessmen, people with money, fame, looks,
100%.
etc. And I just want to be very clear, because with everything that I'm trying to do to teach people, is we all need to learn to really be compassionate, because we all have certain parts of us, certain traits that are toxic in some way, shape, or form. Some of us are lucky to realize it and have that capacity to make change and make a difference and become better. And some people just never will be able to see it. That's just the way it is. And so when it comes to relationships, maybe you're in a situation where you have someone like this in your life. On the flip side, you might be with someone who is really bad with money and you're constantly going bankrupt. You're losing your home, you're losing your things. Maybe you're with somebody who's an alcoholic, a drug user. Maybe you're with somebody who is physically abusive or mentally abusive. It's always going to be something. And so here's the deal. We always have options. And this option, you can flee or you can stay and become super informative, become super intelligent, and know how to navigate this well. So you don't lose part of yourself along the way. And maybe you can learn something more about yourself. And so that's what it really comes to when it comes to relationships is how are you going to grow from this? And we always say relationships are matters of the heart and mind. And connected, it's all about spiritual growth. It's all about mental well-being. It's all about, how do we move intelligently through the things that we need to navigate, the problems, the challenges, the obstacles, whatever they might be. It might be this, and then, maybe it might be something else, right? If you get into a different relationship, the art of mastery is learning thyself first. And so through these experiences, that blessing occurs. And so it's never the end. It is always a new beginning. It's always the way you look at that, and always realize that you have a power.
Whichever way you choose.
Yeah, whichever way you choose. And I do want to thank Dom and Jason for participating and making the comments. It's really helpful and we enjoy the engagement. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. So on that note, this is another episode of the Relationship Series. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Once again, we are always talking about matters of the heart and mind, and we will see you next time. Ciao for now.